Hello, good morning to all my listeners in the United States, and good afternoon and good evening to the other parts of the world. Welcome to another podcast episode for my channel, Data Science with Sam. Today's discussion topic is growing footprints of technology in insurance sector. Some of us who worked in the insurance industry for a long time have witnessed that how digital transformation played a very pivotal role to change the paradigm of insurance industry. Whether it's an advent of big data or its growing popularity of the insurtech concept, we've seen how technology revolutionized the risk assessment platform, modernize some of the infrastructural and technology area relates to different risk businesses. To that purpose, I joined by an esteemed guest from insurance industry, an industry veteran, Nick Leimer, to discuss more about this topic. Nick, welcome to the session. I'm very happy to have you here.
Well, thanks to be here. I am, we've known each other a long time, and it's great to see how, things have changed and evolved both from a technology side and in both of our careers. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Nick. Just for my listeners' benefit, would you like to please talk a little bit about yourself just for introductory purpose? I'm pretty sure my listener would love to know about your professional experience, your recent endeavors in the insurance sectors.
Great. So, like I said, I'm Nick Leimer. I'm currently the Senior Technology Director at Coherent, a global technology company with offices globally, but primarily based in New York at this point. Started out my career in insurance a very long time ago, in the late 90s, working for a software consulting company and developing software as an actuarial student. And then went from that to a couple other consulting companies, then worked for a couple large reinsurer, and then a couple large insurance companies. And then the whole insurance technology area, I've been bouncing back before the actuarial side and tech side. And then I was at Microsoft definitely on the tech side. And now I'm in a company that's delivering actuarial software, well, range of software, primarily to actuarial users, but to really anyone in the industry that uses Excel. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's great to know. And who doesn't love Excel and works in the insurance sector? Everybody, right? So yeah, we're looking forward to see how Nick's company it actually revolutionized some of the Excel practices, which is kind of a very day-to-day, like tool that actuaries or other risk officers and any business users, even the tech people also use for their daily work. So we're excited to see what kind of products that Nick's company would come up with on that. Having said that, I'm going to actually dive down to our first question for this, podcast session. So, Nick, in your opinion, how did technology change the paradigm of insurance industry and risk practices in general, especially in the last couple of decades, like the beginning of from the beginning of 21st century?
Yeah, great. So that's kind of where I jumped into this whole insurance space, and my that first late 90s, just as we moved forward into the early 2000s, the company I was working for, their big selling point was they could take processes that were running on mainframes that were taking weeks to do, and they could do them in hours on people's desktops. So taking this old technology and moving the calculations to your desktop where you could manage it and control it all on your desktop. And then the next wave after we've got, again, empowering the business user to control their work from their desktop and then connect to your IT. So there's a pattern that seems to keep repeating. And and the next phase was, okay, let's take that the next step. Let's take everything to the cloud, and then you still have IT team moving things to the cloud, make it faster and cheaper, and be very scalable. So that's a wave from a few years ago, and now we're moving things. The next kind of big wave is really implementing APIs everywhere. But the problem with APIs is people have to build them. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited about the company I'm with now, and why I moved there from Microsoft. So again, there were a couple key things that really I took away one time at Microsoft, and it kind of goes to their their core motto for the company is empowering people globally to do more. I was like, okay. And the other thing that I thought was really important, there was also a requirement for all Microsoft employees was use the work of others. So I was like, okay, how do we put those two things together? Plus, they have this great product you've already mentioned, Excel. Excel is the world's largest development platform. So
Yeah,
it's really, if you
definitely.
think about it, it's really an
This is
IDE.
the first generation
Uh,
data analytics tool, right?
yeah. So it's, well, and people go, oh, Excel is bad. Excel does have its problems, but so many people know how to use it. We can, and that's great. If you use the, Coherent Spark, which is the company I work for, their tool takes an Excel spreadsheet. You just have to identify what the inputs and the outputs are and drop it into Spark, which is the application, and it generates APIs that are version controlled, auditable, um, and can run up to 1,000 times faster and scalable. So it's from a technology paradigm shift, you're taking what everyone's using, so empowering everybody on the globe, because there's, a couple 100 million Excel users out there. We can take their work they already did, their IP, they've already invested in Excel. And now we're adding the scalability, control, and power of the cloud to really liberate them to do whatever they want. So they're, generating these APIs, which then can plug into whatever, upstream or downstream. Doesn't matter. But it's really that key. We're empowering those business people to take their ideas and from Excel and then use them everywhere, over and over again. That's when I talk about APIs. Some people, oh, what's that? Just think about it as Legos. You got a Lego. I could build buildings with Legos. I could connect multiple things together. I can reuse that same function, that calculation over and over and over and over again. But now I can build and control that API from Excel. So that's what's got me super excited about what I'm doing now.
Oh, that's really good. I mean, great to know. And again, the API is kind of like, I would say, a revolutionary technology concept because it not only like it helped us to integrate a platform with others, it also brings a lot of efficiency and scalability from, whether moving some legacy platform to cloud or even just building a product that you can literally access from desktop and by harnessing the power of computing stuff. So API has been a very revolutionary. And I mean, we saw that in recent days when the Chat GPT came out, people kind of like started using OpenAI API, and like people are just start building products. And it was not possible for people to like building this product if API concept was not there. So I mean, great to know that. And just for my listeners, whoever are interested to take a look at the Coherent Sparks product, which Nick just demonstrated, please feel free to reach out to him. It seems like a very great product, and as long as the insurance sector is still there, Microsoft Excel will still be there. Like it's still a fun
Yeah.
to which people love to use. It doesn't matter whether we will use Power BI, Tableau, or any other data analytics, data visualization tool in future. But I don't think so. The importance of Microsoft Excel will fade away in the near future. It will still be there.
Exactly. And I think even all the power tools can be connected. So all the Power Apps, Power Flow, Power
Yeah.
whatever Microsoft's putting out there, they can be easily connected through Excel and through Spark. We have connectors for Tableau and for all the different power tools as well. So you can still take that technology, that business logic you've got embedded in Excel, and that's you owned by the business unit, now use it over and over again without having to worry about it getting broken. Then people can use it for the exact same tool used for a Power BI report as what's going into SAP or any mainframe system or core system that can connect to an API. So it's that power to have that managed by the business unit. And as an old IT guy, being able to push that pain point to the business is like, well, because always this is the spec I want you to build, and I want you to make it exactly like this Excel spreadsheet. And now we can say, well, you own that, you own the business logic, and just give us the APIs, and we'll connect all the plumbing, and
Yeah.
then we can promote it to production, and it's not the back and forth that all those arguments and discussions about, oh, I want you to do this, I want to make this. Great, you own it, you make that change in Excel, you test it in Excel, you're happy with it, create the API, and then we'll plug everything in. So and then they can use it for all sorts of things, anything from productions, so like valuation to projections to, valuations, I already said that, to underwriting or sales or whatever. If they have the same calculation, they can reuse it over and over again. I mean, that's the power of APIs, is they can reuse that bit of information that's now encapsulated in an API everywhere.
I mean, that's great to know, because obviously, as you mentioned quite eloquently, right, it's going to actually eliminate those business requirement phase that you don't have to go back and forth between business and IT to understand what kind of API or kind of front-end design they need. All they need, that they can take the ownership of designing or anything, whatever they want. IT is just going to take care of just plugging the API into the underlying or like backend systems. So I would say it's a great concept. It's going to definitely eliminate some of the obstacles or like those those meetings, those scrum calls, and it just like literally going to be like each party will own their controls, and they just going to like communicate together using the API. So it seems like a very futuristic approach to me, and it's going to eliminate a lot of conversational obstacle in future. So thanks, Nick, for, I think it's a really good segue to, that will going to bring me to my next question, which is something I'm very kind of like interested to know, because we have seen that that there are so many technical tools that currently we use in our actual or valuation or pricing world. Like Excel is obviously one of the main tools that everybody uses, kind of like a very universal tool everybody uses. But apart from that, what do you do you think that there are some other technical, like essential technical skill set that an actuary or even an underwriter or any risk manager should acquire, other than having their getting their hands dirty on doing Excel work? Is there any other technical toolkits that you would recommend them to like use for their day jobs?
Yeah, no, I think I see a lot of people using R and Python and SQL. And there's so many more that come down the pipe that are just really variations on some of those. So if you're comfortable working in R or in Python and you understand some of the concepts and writing SQL queries and that process, that can get you so much farther. But it seems every few months every 6 months or so, there's like the programming language that we have to work in, or some variation in the whole sort of low code, no code space, which tends to be neither low code or no code. It's just a little bit different structure. But if you understand, how basic programming works, and understand a little bit of, okay, this makes sense, this is a kind of an architectural structure, then that can really help going forward. And yeah, because every time I keep running into the low code, no code, and I start playing around, like, okay, I could have done this so much simpler if I did it even in something like C or C++. But that scares a lot of people, so they think the low code is actually less frightening. But I think that's where it's critical for people to have sort of a basic understanding of some of the traditional programming languages to start with, and then keep your eyes open to look at what's out there. I know for me, and if you look at the insurance industry, a lot of the changes that are happening in the insurance industry now happened in other industries, previously. So if you kind of look at some of the side industries in financial services or manufacturing, whatever, these other technologies that eventually roll into the insurance industry. Again, it comes down to, for insurance, it's doing those calculations even faster and better, and then understanding risk. So that's where I think a lot of things going forward will, come to both using AI and maybe IoT devices to really understand different types of risks for what's being insured by insurance companies going forward.
Yeah. No, no, that's a really great point, because as you mentioned that it doesn't matter how many tools we use, whether it's a low code versus no code platform. It's better to have a fundamental understanding about this programming language, whether it's C++ or any object oriented programming language, or even just getting your getting some hands-on experience in writing structured query language like SQL or Oracle, other stuff. Because I feel like at some point of time, and I do embrace this low code and no code, that the dynasty that we're going to face very soon, as everything seems like a product driven right now in the technology space. But I feel like it's still good to know those fundamental programming language. So if things go wrong, at least any actuary or a risk manager or even underwriter could at least write some code and perform the analysis by themselves. They don't have to basically know a programming language in terms of building a web server, web development, or something they need to. I mean, they don't have to acquire skills of a software engineer from programming language standpoint, but they should know at least a basic a programming language so they can perform data analysis or some sort of a due diligence from risk assessment perspective. And R and Python, those are a very great programming languages. I'm a little inclined to R because I've seen a lot of applicabilities of R in the insurance sector than Python, but I feel like Python is more of a better programming language since it covers a lot of different aspects, which R is still limited to. I'm not a very a big fan of SAS, but I haven't used it a lot, but I know the SAS has a great importance, especially in the insurance world. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's great for people to know some fundamental about programming language. So sometimes they can just they don't have to rely on low code or no code platform all the time. They can just write a script or do their own analysis without relying on IT or any software engineer all the time. Yeah, so that's great. Thanks, Nick, for your insights on the second question. That kind of takes me to the third question, which is more of a very futuristic and a very kind of a relevant to what's going on in the outside world with all this chat GPT and the revolution in the space of generative AI. So now, obviously, it's kind of a very obvious question in any industry right now, that how the AI is going to make an impact in the insurance sector, like it's been already going on in the other industry. I know in insurance sector, we do have a lot of obstacle in terms of implementing a new technology. For example, we need to keep in mind about the data security and privacy. We need to think about the operational risk, or how we're going to actually comply with the regulation and compliance. As I know that there's some multiple insurance companies, even I guess my company as well, has started started hiring AI paralegal person in order to ensure that they will have a framework for AI governance or regulatory compliance. So in future, if they're going to implement some AI tool, they need to then make sure that that will comply with all the guidelines before they productionize them. So that's given. Having said that, so do you think this impact of generative AI will have a long-term impact on insurance sector, or is it something like a short term, but eventually we were going to get back to our traditional approach of IT modernization without involving AI to some extent?
I think it actually just can be so in everything all the time that we won't even notice it. Because it's already in everything all the time, always. So it's, for example, if you look at, Word or really any Microsoft Office products, behind the scenes, there's AI that's running all the time. So your spell check, it gives you examples of what the next series of words should be. It corrects your grammar. So there's AI processing everything you do, from emails to to Word documents already. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, well, when will AI impact? No, AI is here everywhere now. It's like, can it do a lot more? Yes. And I think I think people are seeing how that whole sort of chat process works. And I think it can be really beneficial for things like chat bots and creating blogs and generating sort of basic reporting from data that's collected elsewhere. Again, to your point that you mentioned, you have to have guide rails around it so that you stay legal, because it's easy for, especially for risk assessments. AI is extremely good at figuring out risk scores for individuals or things. Um, but not all of those would be necessarily legal. So it does not sort of have the idea of, okay, we have to sort of risk pool this instead of having individualized risk scores for every single person. Um, Again, it'll be interesting to see how those things tie together and where those become really problematic. Um, yeah, because again, it's always comes down to the data that flows in, but then you have to sort of watch, you avoid sort of your legal problems of you didn't all the things you can't use, but then it effectively figures that out going forward. A good example in California on the P&C side, you can't make a variation on your insurance rates for P&C products by gender. And historically, that's always, been one of the key, age, gender, have always been a key thing on the life side. But if you take that away, it's like, okay, and then you put AI, it ends up finding how they can push gender back into it from other sources of data. So then you have to sort of reverse engineer it to take it out of an AI product. When I was at Microsoft, we worked with a couple different companies that were using AI machine learning to generate factors, and then you identified each factor. So the way they got around some of this issue was they built this model that would generate all the different factors that went into their calculations, and they put in the illegal things. So they put in gender or ethnicity, and then they built everything out, and then they took those parts of the model out and let it run. So that you identified everything that was tied to gender from an AI perspective, all the data came in, and then at the last step, you took that out of the model. So you could prove that you did not use gender, for example, for the state of California. So you have to almost put it in the model while you're building it and then take it out when you use it. Otherwise, it's going to creep in. It's going to be hard to prove that you took it out otherwise.
No, that's a very great point because I think in in recent days, as we are actually taking a huge leap in the AI world, the model bias is also one of the very prevalent issues right now. And most of the cases when somebody train their model using those demographic information, gender, race, ethnicity, it's very imperative that model could be show some biasness in the accuracy results. So, and that's also a very challenging factor. So how we can rely on the model result and how we can ensure that the model won't showcase or exhibit any biasness in there. So that's one of the thing I guess that will push back a little bit of progress of AI, especially in the insurance sector. Obviously, anybody. Whether our pricing team or whether our underwriters is going to perform their due diligence in terms of merging or pricing products, they need to consider that that nothing would be like a bias towards demographic information. So that's a very
Yeah.
important thing, as you mentioned, that because also we need to make sure that all the state laws are we comply with all the state laws. As you mentioned, in
Yeah.
California, you're not allowed to use any gender or race or ethnicity in your model prediction results. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like we are still in a very early stage of implementing AI governance or anything, but I feel like the AI regulation or compliance is necessary before we take any giant leap. I know we can do a lot of things with AI. I mean, like you mentioned that we've already been using AI for in all those Microsoft products. I think a couple of days back I was watching a video that somebody find out a way that how you can integrate ChatGPT with Power BI or Excel, which will help you to write those formulas. So you don't have to run know those formulas. So you just kind of type your requirement, whether you want to do sum or you want to do minus, aggregate, or other stuff, and chat with the power of ChatGPT, the Excel will come up with the formula by itself. So you don't have to kind of go through a Google search engine to find out what's the exact DAX formula for summation, aggregation, other stuff. So yeah, so in those cases, I guess AI could be very beneficial for any a non-tech person, especially in the insurance area. So there will be a less learning curve to learn some of the tools, but still we are, I guess, not there yet. We still need to consider all these elements of risk before we take a giant leap in that area.
Yeah, no, I think it's that example. Obviously in my company, we've explored that as well. And the key thing is it can be really helpful for somebody who's, want to try out a new or doesn't know how to do something you just would Google normally and go, okay, I just need it for, and this actually helps you effectively do that in the process and put it into your Excel spreadsheet right away. So it really makes it easier for people to use Excel. Um, the key, I mean, there's still you want to be more efficient at it as well. Um, but that's okay too. I mean, it gets people, again, it goes to that empowering people. It lets people do more easier. So I think that could be really useful. But to productionalize that, you still need to have the control pieces on it and understand some of the risks of using AI. Um, I think it's great for like BI reports. I mean, that's where I think it could be really interesting because you can see one of the things AI is really good at is seeing patterns and interconnections that may not be as obvious to everybody else. So it's, you think it's going to be, I should look at these things because that's what's making the biggest difference. But AI can look at everything all the time and go, okay, this is what's really the key point, whether that's what you're trying to prove or not. Um, that's where it can be, I think, really interesting. Um, but you also have to take a step back. There's always just because there's correlation doesn't mean that's really what's important. And
Yeah.
I can see people going, oh yeah, it's everybody that's wore green shoes today got hit by a car. It's like, well,
Yeah,
it
it's
wasn't
just like
because they wore green
yeah, you
shoes.
don't
Yes.
actually jump on the bandwagon, just because others are doing the same thing. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So again, I started my career actually as a statistician. So it's like, I can see the power, but I can also see the where it can be used incorrectly. So
Oh, that's great to know, and I think that's a great advice because it just feel like we all kind of like just going with the hype, the AI hype, and that's kind of triggered and amplified after this advent of ChatGPT or something. But I guess sometimes it's good to take a step back to understand why you need AI and is it going to make your life better, and also alleviate some of the operational risk before you take any decision to implement AI for your business
Mhm.
practices. We do have a lot of other tools out there. We're already harnessing AI power. So it's not like that you just need an AI to do everything. Like there are so many tools and products out there, like your organizations working on the Excel API product. That's I feel like it's a very I would say pivotal product, especially it's going to make a lot of people's life easier in the insurance sector, especially in the day jobs, and they don't have to like work coherently with the IT people to design some of the stuff. They can easily have full control on their design spec or business processes. Yeah. So having said that, like, I guess it's kind of brings me to the end of the discussion. But before I go, I really wanted to ask you that do you have any tips for any like a fresh technology graduates out of like school who would like to pursue their career in the insurance sector? I know you mentioned that you started your career as a statistician before you moved onto the tech space. So do you have any tips for the new generation would like to pursue their career in the insurance industry?
yeah, I think I actually had the ability to, while I was working as a statistician, I was trying to learn new things about insurance, seemed like a natural fit. So I was taking actuarial exams. There's actually a technology thread now that didn't exist when I was taking the exam. So there's an easier way with the Society of Actuaries on the life side, and then um, the similar thing on the PNC side. So there are classes and courses you can take to help you get acquainted with the insurance industry if you're working outside of it. And then from a pure tech perspective, there's so much that's out there for learning new languages or new everything again we talked about from low code to R to Python to C or everything's so much more accessible now with online courses and communities and chat groups that you can be connected to. Um, it's easy to sort of at least get a taste for what's out there. Um, and that way you can still keep your day job and then look at that stuff in the evening and go like, that really interests me or that is not where I want to go. So you don't have to take that big leap into a company and then realize this is not the job I wanted. So, um, and that's also a good way to network and connect as well. So, I'm a big user of LinkedIn as well. So that's a good way to sort of keep connected. Uh, it's a small world. It's amazing how many people I run into that I've worked with before, or we've worked at the same company. I have one friend, we've worked at the same company 4 different times. It's so over the length of my career, it's like, okay, yeah, and it's never we never were hired each other, or we just ended up I so yeah, in each case I was there first and he came in after, except the last one. The last one he was there and I did was just doing a consulting gig, and he was an employee there. So yeah, it's a small world and connections are important. And I always like to say this too. It's treat everyone with respect because you're going to run into them again later. So
Exactly.
it's just how it works. Yeah.
True. I mean, definitely. I mean, yeah, great advice for all the newcomers or whoever listening to this session. I would like to pursue their career in the insurance sector. Is that, as Nick mentioned very eloquently, that professional networking is very important. And also, I want to mention that since Nick mentioned about the Society of Actuaries, so the Society of Actuaries is a global professional organization for actuaries. Okay, and if you'd like to know more about Society of Actuaries, please check the caption section. I already shared the link over there, so please take a look at Society of Actuaries and what they usually do to, help the actuaries to become a better working professional in the insurance sector. So do check out the link, and if you have any question, feel free to reach out to me or Nick about Society of. So I think that's all for now. So Nick, it was great to have you over here. Thank you for all the information and especially giving a very good viewpoints of all the questions that we covered during this session. I was very pleased to have you as a guest for this session. So thank you so much, and I will definitely connect with you next time. And for my viewers, listeners, please stay tuned for the next podcast episode from my channel featuring an academia or industry expert. Thank you, and have a great weekend, everyone.